The biggest mistake I made in my business was not hiring a professional to help me with my money. Not just my taxes, but the actual plan I had for my business. I was completely lost on how to handle taxes, what to do with profit, and how to maintain my income. I had to find a better way. That's when I found Core Financial. Core Financial is a team of tax professionals that actually care about building real relationships with their clients. They run my books, keep me up to date with my finances, and make sure I'm taking full advantage of all of my tax benefits. Are you struggling with your finances? Look no further. Core Financial is a brand that is nationwide that can help you with your business. Both Nick and I are huge fans of Core, and they can help you too. Check out howtofilmweddings.com/core to schedule a consultation today. Core Financial. Real relationships, no surprises.
It seems like there are new cameras and equipment coming out all of the time. It gets increasingly confusing and the FOMO is real. John and I have been preaching for years that the best way to try out new gear is to rent before you buy. There is only one place that we recommend when it comes to renting, and that is our friends over at Lens Rentals. Lens Rentals is the premier source for renting not only camera equipment, but lenses, drones, projectors, and more. Do you have a big project coming up and you really need to wow your couple? Wanting to test out the newest camera before you drop thousands on it? You need Lens Rentals. My favorite thing is that if I love something I rent, I can keep it. They apply a portion of the rental fee to the purchase price, and within a few simple clicks, the gear is mine. So head over to howtofilmweddings.com/lensrentals and use promo code HTFW15 at checkout for 15% off of your order. Lens Rentals, the only place we recommend renting.
Hello and welcome to How to Film Weddings. My name is John Bunn. If you didn't know, I'm a wedding filmmaker based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I just wanted to see if you would laugh, Nick. And my good buddy. For those of you
that don't know me.
For those that don't know me, I am a wedding filmmaker, wedding videographer out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the heartland of America.
I kid you not. At my wedding this past weekend, the maid of honor gets up there and she goes, For those of you that don't know me, I'm sorry, you're missing out. And I had never heard that before, and I thought it was incredible.
That is very neat. And today is a neat day. It's Monday, which is the best day of the week because of a couple things, but mainly because there's a new How to Film Weddings podcast. Yes. But Nick, before we get into that, I know you just got back from Colorado. You said that you filmed a wedding there. Your head is sunburned.
My face got very sunburned. You know, you're closer to the sun, I guess, and when you don't wear sunblock and you don't have head covering
or hair.
I don't know. Oh, well, yeah.
I don't get a sunburn on the top of my head. I was outside last weekend the whole time, and it was very sunny and no sunburn on my head, but a nice glisten on my skin.
On the plus, the hottest that I got was like 81 degrees. So, you know, I think I'd take what I got.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this week because in the last 7 days, we just released something really cool. And we want to make sure we mention it because we talked about it last week. But, Nick, we hired the designer that built your website, built my new website. She built a pricing guide for you last year. And I was like, what the heck is this? This is awesome. We should have her design a single template for us to have in our shop. She blew us away. She did 3 of them, a modern one, an adventure one, and a luxury one, which is super cool. A lot of people have grabbed them. We had them on sale. I think the sale's over.
The sale, I believe.
Maybe we'll just put a little slash through and take $50 off for the next week or something. I don't know. I haven't asked you yet.
But you just put it out there, so like
$50 off this week, so you can still grab those for $149. Nick, you spent like, I don't know, $500-$600 to have one designed custom for you. But tell us what these things are real quick, then we'll talk about our podcast.
Yeah. So the pricing guide, it's really more of a pricing experience, if you want to think of it that way. It's not just a pricing sheet. You're not just sending over some numbers and stuff. It's an actual 12 to 14 page little PDF that you can send over to your clients. It's designed very nice. You can find these images that are royalty free. I know a lot of videographers don't have nice, imagery of, their couples or stuff. So our designer turned us onto a couple websites where you can actually use images on there, and it's designed for that. So they're, stock photos, and, you share about your business, you share about things about you, you put a picture of you, but then you also put your pricing and FAQ page, just a whole bunch of stuff. So it's really, when you send that over to your clients, it's a full experience and they can get a good idea of who you are and what you do. So that's really what it is. It comes with a text tutorial if you like to read. I created a little video tutorial. The template is made in Adobe InDesign. And so there's some people out there like, I've never opened InDesign, and I hadn't opened InDesign before in my life until I started going through this stuff. But it's actually, if you know Photoshop, it's very, very similar. There's just a few things that are different. And so if you don't have InDesign, you can do a free trial. If you have the Adobe Creative Cloud, you're already paying for it and you can just download it for free. But if you don't, then you can download a free trial for a month, get it made, and then cancel your subscription, and there you go.
Yeah, and it's super helpful. It's the first digital product we've actually put in our store in like a year, and it's blowing me away with like, hey, how many people have already got these, but they're tagging us on Instagram. And if you do grab one, tag us, share how it's looking, because that helps us help you, help us help you, and we love it.
Help me to help you.
Yeah, but Nick, today is also a great day because of the interview that we just had with Ben from Make Better Wedding Films. His podcast is blowing up. Mm-hmm. He's doing incredible things. If you don't know who this guy is, he's out of New Zealand, and it's almost summertime there for him. He said fortnight.
He did say fortnight, and then we were like, what's a fortnight? And then we were going to ask him, but then I think we both forgot to ask him what
I Googled it.
What is it? Is it?
I'm not telling
40
you.
days? Isn't it 40 days? Oh,
nope.
No.
You'll
it's
have
like
to
a
look.
month.
Post in the comments. It's not.
Okay.
It's going to bother you until you Google it.
It is really good. But one thing that I will say, I think this is really cool, and it's just interesting how the world works. He said that we really inspired him. The How to Film Weddings podcast has really inspired his podcast journey and all that kind of stuff. But lately, we have found ourselves being very inspired by what Ben is doing over there at Make Better Wedding Films, and especially their Instagram account and like that kind of stuff. So it's really cool how this whole thing has come full circle. Mm-hmm. And he talks about his business. He talks about the creative diet, which I thought was a really interesting point. And then also his podcast. And he has a special offer for all of our listeners if you want to support Make Better Wedding Films. John, this is a really long intro. We should probably just get started.
Yeah, we probably should. I really want to talk some more because I just love talking. But I say we can go ahead and jump into this week's episode. All right. Well, thank you, Ben Journee, for being on the How to Film Weddings podcast. For those out in the internet world that don't know who you are, why don't you say hello, introduce yourself, give us the details. Who is Ben Journee?
Kia ora, everybody. My name is Ben. I'm a wedding filmmaker based here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I'm really excited to be on the show here, and hopefully my speech impediment doesn't crop up too much more during the episode.
It is all good. We're excited to have you here. And you said you're from not New York or New Mexico. You're from New Zealand. Not an ugly place to film weddings. I just would love to kind of hear a little of your story. For those that don't know your story, like when did you get started doing wedding films? What's a typical wedding film look like for you? Are you up in the crazy landscapes? Just tell us some of the story of your business, how it got going, and just hit us with that info.
Yeah, man, for sure. So I've been filming weddings for about 10 years here in New Zealand. New Zealand's beautiful, but it's like the United States, the landscape's really varied. So the New Zealand that everyone thinks about in terms of Lord of the Rings is not my New Zealand. That's in the South Island. I'm in the North Island of New Zealand. So, I'm doing weddings around beaches, there's lots of beautiful little islands around my city, Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. New Zealand's a geographically small country, similar to the UK, and so I tend to flit around all over the show. But been filming weddings for about 10 years now, and yeah, man, I love it. Like our season is kind of like the opposite to you guys. So I'm filming weddings from about October to April. That's our sort of summer wedding period. And people don't tend to get married here in the winter too often, unless you're up in the mountains down in Queenstown. But yeah, man, it's a fun place. smaller country, obviously, than the United States, like population wise too. We've got about 5 million people. The market's a little tighter. Like you don't have quite the sort of high end of the market that you guys have. And so I'm sort of capping out on the top of the market and where I am. But yeah, it's cool, man. It's a fun place to shoot.
I think it just baffles me still that, like, I know this, but how you're currently in winter, right? Or kind of the tail end of winter, and we're like at the tail end of summer, and it's weird to me that you're in August and you're like, yeah, it's not, it's winter. That's all.
Yeah. It's crazy, like, to really think about it. Like, when you say October to April, we're like, ooh, that's when we like slow things down. And so if you don't understand how the globe works, he's in the southern hemisphere, which it's currently winter, almost spring, right? I mean, we're getting there for you. And so your wedding season like is pretty empty the last few months, and you're about to probably start ramping back up. How are things with COVID, everything going on? Are things shut down over there? Are things back open?
Well, things are currently shut down. They have been completely open for months now. So we had gotten rid of COVID effectively completely. We had no cases of COVID for the last 6 months, but
that's incredible.
We had a case of the Delta variant come in a couple of weeks ago, and so our Prime Minister shut the entire country down. And so we're currently in the middle of a lockdown, and hopefully our cases are starting to go down. We had 50 cases yesterday, so fingers crossed we can come out of it and be ready for a nice COVID-free summer. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think that's so crazy. It's weird to think of different people in different places around the world doing what you do. I want to dive a little bit, if it's okay with Nick, just a little more into, like, you said you started 10 years ago. You said the market kind of caps out. We get this question a lot because a lot of people are like, you don't know what it's like. We don't live in the United States. I'd love to kind of just, like you said, you're at the top of your market. What does that look like there, to be at the top of the market? Like, what are you including in your films? What is the cost for that? What's it look like over there?
Sure, man. So I currently have 3 packages, sort of like main packages on my website. The middle package of which goes for about $6,000. That's New Zealand dollars, so roughly half US. Okay. I think. I'm not actually too sure on the exchange rates at the moment, but and then so that would include things like a highlight film, full ceremony, full speeches, with 2 videographers. That's kind of my main sort of package that most couples go for. And then I have things like I do live streaming as extras, like social media edits, things like that. But yeah, most of my weddings come in at around the sort of $6,000 to $6,500 New Zealand dollar range.
I use the power of Google to see that 6,000. Yeah, you go for it, Nick. Go for it.
6,000 New Zealand dollars is like 4,200 US dollars. So there you go. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Not too shabby. Yeah, not too shabby. No. And so you've been doing this for 10 years. And so, like, how did you, like, get into this? Like, what were you doing that made you say, this is what I want to do? What is it about this that, like, keeps drawing you in 10 years later?
Yeah, man. So I had previously, up until picking up a camera, always thought I was going to be an artist. So I, like, always drew as a kid, went to animation school, did a graphic design degree, majored in illustration, got right through to the end of my degree, and I was about 21, and for my 21st birthday, my parents got me a little DSLR camera, and as soon as I started playing around with the camera, I was like, well, this is way better. I can, like, get the ideas in my head out through this camera way easier than I could with a pen and paper, and I just started mucking around from there. And I was also a dancer, and so me and my friends started, like, mucking around with the brand new video functions on this DSLR, making dance videos. I was, experimenting and doing all sorts of cool things. I, like, built a Steadicam gimbal out of, like, PVC parts from like, effectively Home Depot. We don't have Home Depot, but just started mucking around and experimenting, and then got into weddings basically as just a way to like make some money from this camera. I started seeing sort of cinematic wedding films coming out of the likes of the US. It was really, really new here. Barely anyone was doing it. And I was like, well, I can do that. Filmed my ex-girlfriend's wedding for free.
Okay.
And, just kind of went from there. And yeah, here I am 10 years later.
I love it.
Oh, that's cool. There's so many people that, just pick up a camera and they're like, hey, I just want to try and do this. And then they end up finding fulfillment or, something like that. I know, anyway, that's cool how you found that, video, is how you were using that art degree or, whatever that you went to school for. So that's really neat. A question that just popped into my head is, since, New Zealand is a smaller country and, that sort of stuff, what's the filmmaker community like there? Like, do you think it's like, do people get along with each other? Is it kind of more, kind of hush hush kind of thing? Or, I'm just wondering what it's like in, other countries.
Yeah. So, it's very small. Everyone knows everyone. And well, especially in terms of the like videographer side of things, there's just really not many videographers down here. And so, yeah, everyone kind of knows everyone. And because of that, we tend, like, my community in terms of like the local kind of like Facebook group of people I'm sort of like generally hanging out with is definitely a mix of photographers and videographers. So there's definitely a culture here of like photographers and videographers all chatting. There are like photographers who kind of do video, kind of not. Others who are just like looking for videographers to pair up with. So yeah, I'm kind of like part of this Facebook group of like 400 people that are all kind of like local photo video people. And that's my sort of bubble of people I'm sort of relatively aware of in my market down here. Obviously there's more than that, total, but
sure.
Yeah, it's a relatively small, tight-knit little community.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's cool to kind of like when did you come across, because I know like it feels like a few years back, when we got going with how to film weddings, when did you come across our stuff? Like, how long has that been, and has that infiltrated kind of out your way? Like, is that helping out there? Or like, I'm not asking for a compliment, but you can give us one. But like, I'm more like, when did that come into play? What has that been like for you in your country? Like, has that been a help for the industry to kind of see what other people are doing?
Yeah, so it's like certainly in the early days, the podcast and then the Facebook group was a great way to, I guess, just like bounce ideas around with other wedding filmmakers, because there weren't that many, and because I'd been doing it for like I was one of the earliest people doing it. I'd been doing it a long time compared to other people in the market. I didn't have anyone I could really like bounce different sorts of ideas around. So it was like the Facebook group in particular was really cool for that. And I mean, I kind of just came across you guys because I had started my podcast like a few months after you guys had, and so I was sort of just I don't know how I stumbled across you guys, but been listening for a while.
Yeah, and you mentioned your podcast, and like I remember kind of seeing out of nowhere, I was like, oh, there's this like Show Love podcast. What's this guy doing over here? Like, who's this guy from New Zealand? And it was like, same thing kind of happened with Nick and I when we first got going with our podcast. It was like we would ask people to be on, or and people were just kind of like, we're gonna wait it out to kind of see if you stick around. It wasn't like we don't think you're cool, John and Nick, but it's like we get asked to do a lot of stuff, so like we'll see. And then that's kind of how it felt. Like I was like, I wonder if this guy like is legit. And the more that we saw you, the more we saw what you were doing, it was just like, This guy, like, because you kept it like for a while, I think once a month, or you're doing, and like you were just working through it. And I felt like that was really cool to mention, because I think a lot of people think that you just get somewhere and you started one place and then you're there, or like there's been a little bit of a journey, no pun, intended, but like, I want to get into talking about your podcast and different things like that. We'll do that here in just a little bit. But like, I guess what I want to say is like, what was that like for you? Like, what was that process like of, you said you got it started, but like, how's that? I guess I'll get into the podcast a little bit. Actually, I'm going to hold myself off on it here. We need to go to a break.
Yeah,
so I will go to a break here.
Yeah, we can talk about it later.
But
it's still good.
I want to talk about this because I think it's really important to people out there that are growing things. Nick is laughing at me. That's okay.
Nick is just losing.
Him and his red bald head. So I'm going to go to break, but after the break, we'll talk more with Ben we'll talk more with Ben.
Hi, it's Michael from Wedditer. We want to thank everyone for the incredible support we've received since sponsoring How to Film Weddings. Yes, we've had some growing pains, but we've had far more wins. And we're doing something that's never been done. We're a remote team of over 50 editors in 10 countries. I often joke that we're as much a logistics company as we are a creative company. Right now, demand is off the charts. And we don't just say yes to everyone and scramble to figure it out. That's why we're asking you to help us help more of you. In short, we're looking for more talented Wedditors. Part-time or full-time, work from where you want, when you want, as long as you hit deadlines and deliver quality. It's a chance to get paid while growing as an editor. Our project managers work with you, explaining why something feels right or doesn't, because there's always a reason. If you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. Go to wedditer.com/editor and fill out our form.
All right, we're back from break. Boy, I suck at podcasting, but that's okay. If you missed it, that's all right. There's no editing that bad job that I did, because I'm really excited to get into talking to Ben here about his podcast. But before we do that, I did want to talk to you about a couple things. I've seen you alongside this podcast, and it's growing and changing. You found your style with that, but I know that you're really keen on talking about finding your style when it comes to your wedding films. What has that journey been like for you when it comes to how you found your style? What advice would you have for people out there in the internet about that?
Yeah, so I don't know. I've been doing wedding films for a bit, and I started to get a bit stale with it and a bit bored, and I kind of dropped it. Like sort of stopped caring about my business, stopped caring about chasing leads, because I was kind of bored with wedding films, and sort of financially got a kick up the bum when that I started to feel the impacts of that. And so I started to go, okay, I'm gonna go all in on this and start to figure out a way to enjoy it, and started looking for types of wedding films that I did like, and I sort of started to learn about these more fun, energetic, experimental types of wedding films, and that led me down a whole journey of kind of figuring out my style, knowing that the wedding films that I just happened to be coming across and seeing that everyone was doing wasn't the only way to do things. That there's infinite ways of making wedding films, and so and through doing like chatting with other photographers and stuff, I just came across like new places to find inspiration, because I'd kind of lost my way in terms of just looking at other wedding filmmakers and what they were doing, and not getting the kind of creative spark that I wanted from that.
Yeah, I can really relate to you on that one. I know probably 2017 into 2018, Jen and I were really on fire for our business, and we were trying new things for us, and getting really excited about pumping out new content and all that stuff. And then go figure, I got really busy. I started How to Film Weddings. And so, it's like, okay, now I'm working a bunch on both of these things. So, something kind of had to give a little bit. And I can definitely understand that struggle of, I don't want to say I didn't care, but I kind of didn't care, what you were going through. And then so just having to work through that and have some, come to Jesus meetings with my wife about our business and, figuring out, how we wanted to, move forward and work and all of that kind of stuff. So I totally understand that. One thing that you mentioned here, we have you fill out a questionnaire and you said, the danger of saving good ideas for better weddings. And I'm really interested to hear, kind of what that means and what your thought process behind that, whenever you're out there and you're filming in your style. What does that mean?
So, basically, I think early on, in the career of a creative person, they sort of treat themselves like this sort of box of creative ideas that they can take things out of. And that if they take a good thing, that's gone and that's not coming back. Whereas as I developed and sort of started to learn things, I realized that's not true at all. So, if you use a good idea, a new one will come. And so if you, basically I found in the early days, I found myself sort of holding off and having these cool ideas and go, I'll wait for a different wedding for that. And I'll hang on to that. Whereas when I started to just use all my good ideas, as soon as they came, more started to come, and it became the sort of muscle that I started flexing, and working on. And basically it's something that I really truly believe in now, to just not just to trust that something new will come. You can't see it. If you've got this idea, you think that's your last good idea that's ever going to come, more will come. And so you just use it, and it'll something else will come and replace it.
That's I like to think that, or we like to think exactly what you're saying. You use something once and then it's gone forever. But, when it comes to creativity, when it comes to filmmaking, when it comes to writing, when it comes to whatever it is that you're going to do, the more that you do it, the better you get at it and the more efficient you are, or the more creative you can be. And so, if you have an idea, run with it, do it, because you don't know what it could spark or what it could start doing or how it could change your editing style or your color or how you're filming or, any of that kind of stuff. So, I love that idea of not holding on to things, going through with it and doing it, because you can always film better. And, something that John and I have shared a lot, is most people, when it comes to wedding films, are on a progression up, right? We're charging this amount and we want to go up. Our films look this way, but we want them to get better, whatever it may be. And so we say, film a wedding like it's going to be next year's, showpiece or next year's whatever. And so if you're taking those ideas and running with them and try to make better, even though it was only in quotes, a $3,000 package, but you film it like a $5,000 package. So then later on you can sell that as a $5,000 package. And then that can just continue to go up, to some point or another. One thing, John, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to add, I didn't want to interrupt you there because your beautiful voice was just, soothing to the ears, just like that beautiful beard. Anyway, so I think this whole idea of stepping stones, right? I think about where I've come from and how far, all these experiences, all of these risks, everything that I do has led up to the things that I get to do today. And I think that the culture is so protective, especially in the artistic community, of if I put this out there, somebody's going to steal it, or I can't use it again, or I'm not I really wanted to save that kind of transition for this wedding I'm doing up in the mountains this, in a month, or and instead of like practicing and putting your work out there, like it forces you to grow. It forces you to take another step. So it's like holding things back. I mean, there's certain times where it's like, okay, I know I'm filming a wedding at this volcano. I know this transition that it's like, that's different than, your average, like, this couple wasn't my showpiece couple, so I'm not going to do, and it's just like this weird balance of like creating art and these memories. But the whole idea of stepping stones, and like I've watched you do it, and I'm eager to talk to you about how you've grown, your Make Better Wedding Films podcast and what you're doing over there, and all that good stuff. But it really is not being afraid. There's this insecurity that comes with, I have to save this. I can't share this information. We've seen that with How to Film Weddings as we share more and more information, and people are like, what, like, aren't you afraid that you're going to cannibalize yourself? And aren't you afraid that someone's going to copy you? Or that, and I can tell you this, we've given so much free information, and I have booked the most expensive weddings every year after year because we are pushing each other creatively as a whole to get better. So tell me a little bit about like some of the stepping stones in your business, not necessarily the podcast, that like you're talking about when you're talking about growing artistically. What are some of those stepping stones people should be thinking about?
So I mean, I definitely like what you were saying there around the fear of people stealing your ideas, which is this kind of like fallacy that creatives are also afraid of, right? But I mean, all great artists steal, and so like you should be stealing as much as you think other people are stealing from you. And the fear of someone pinching your idea when you put it out there shouldn't stop you from putting it out there. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of like how I was progressing, it was starting to look at other people's stuff critically and what I could steal. And so, but when it comes to that, it's about not looking, I guess, necessarily at your direct environment. So looking outside of wedding films, basically. My buddy Cy Moore has got a beautiful phrase called the creative diet, which is his sort of philosophy on basically like how you feed yourself creatively. And so you should be feeding yourself with the best, most potent forms of creativity that you can then hopefully regurgitate a slightly worse version of, that is going to be better than, trying to regurgitate an average bit of, creative, whatever. But basically, the whole idea is you try and feed yourself with the best possible quality creative input, and the hopes that it will result in a better creative output from you.
Yeah. What is, John? What's the phrase, or something like, you are going to be, the 5 people that you hang out with in the, media or books or whatever that you consume. Like that's what is really going to shape you and who you are really going to be. And I think that we, as you're saying, a lot of us, I'm a wedding filmmaker and, I do this, and that's just what we do, but we're not feeding that. I like that, the creative diet. We're not feeding, that side of our brains, and maybe some of that, has to do is, sometimes I just want to sit down and veg out and watch something and not like try to analytically, pull it apart or, whatever, but not being purposeful in doing that sort of stuff. Watching something to be inspired, watching something to figure out how we're going to do that. And I know there have been several people that we've talked to that they actually pull a lot of their inspiration from music videos and, the direction that they're going. And I mean, it's a very similar kind of medium to what we're doing, right? They're short, 4 to 5 minute, pieces, when they're telling, a song or whatever. Anyway, I think that's a really interesting thing, idea. Yeah. John, did you have something? Sorry.
Nope.
Yeah. But yeah, music videos are...
Ben, go ahead.
Music videos are a great place to find inspiration. But it's all about, I guess, finding like what's authentically you. And it's like, so for example, like I wanted my films to feel like fun and a bit nostalgic and a bit edgy and stuff. And I love skateboarding, and I've loved skateboarding since I was a little kid. I love watching skate videos. And so I started rewatching skate videos, like old 90s skate videos, thinking, what can I take from these? And because like for me, that was like, okay, this is going to be authentically me. It's going to be a place of inspiration that no one else is really going to be looking at. And it's raw, it's potent, it's edgy. What can I take from this and hopefully sort of distill out a watered down version of into my wedding films? And that's when I started to like play with old VHS cameras, like all sorts of the sort of like the quirky things that they use in skate videos. They use lots of like motion blur for transitions, things like that. So that's what I started to pull out. And yeah, if you're into, I don't know, like comic book films, or if you're into, I don't know, like anything that you're authentically into, dive into that, and you can take the bits of inspiration out of it into your own work, and that'll make your work authentically you.
Yeah, I really like I really like that. I like how you put that. You know, something that you're authentic about, something that's really you. Because if I'm watching, someone else's work, like you're kind of saying earlier, if I kind of rip it off, it'll just be like a cheap version of that, right? Because I'm just like, oh, that looks cool, and there isn't a deeper meaning to it. But whenever you have something that you're like, I am drawn to this, I am inspired by this, this is the type of stuff that I want to create, that's a little bit more different than trying to just rip something off and do something on your own. So John has talked about it for a while, but this is Ben's podcast that he hosts, and we want to talk to him about that, Make Better Wedding Films, that podcast, and we will do that right after this break.
Finding the perfect song for your wedding film can be so frustrating. We spend countless hours searching for the perfect song. When it comes to licensing music, Nick and I both love MusicBed. Not only do they have the best music, but their website makes it so easy to find the perfect song and to find it fast. We have both been using the MusicBed's wedding subscription for years and cannot recommend it enough. Not only are they adding new music from incredible musicians like Chapters, The Light, The Heat, and Tony Anderson all the time, they've made it incredibly easy to search their library for mood, genre, instrumentation, and even key. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed and use promo code HTFW for a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription. howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed.
Okay, we are back from break with Ben Journee, and we're going to go ahead and jump into our Wedditer question of the day. Wedditer, more than freelance, more than outsourcing. And Ben, here's my question. What is your podcast? Tell me about it.
That's a good question. That's deep.
Very nice segue there, Nick. So my podcast is called Make Better Wedding Films. As John alluded to earlier, it used to be called Show Love. And so I've been podcasting for about 2 and a bit years now. And yeah, I sort of started off the show as Show Love, and started interviewing just like my friends, wedding filmmakers, photographers, just once a month. Started slow, and just as a way to sort of connect, learn from people, network. I didn't really have any kind of plan to like monetize or anything like that in the early days, and yeah, just did that for like a year and a bit. And then I came to a point where I guess became more clear on my goals with podcasting and education, and reaching out beyond my little bubble here in New Zealand. I mean, I had been talking to people outside of New Zealand, but I was sort of really starting to explore the full breadth of what like the world of wedding filmmaking had. And so I sort of went away in a little cave and got cooking and reimagined the podcast as Make Better Wedding Films. And I've been aware of what you guys had been doing and following what you guys have been doing, and been sort of, I guess, looking up to you guys as an example of what wedding film education and podcasts could be. And I think because in the early days of Show Love, there was a lot of similarities in like our shows, the way they were structured and stuff, and in the process of reimagining Make Better Wedding Films, I wanted to sort of look at what you guys do, what you offer, and sort of see, okay, what is something different I could do? What's something that you guys do really well that I could do, and that I can sort of leave alone and leave to you guys, and focus on something different. And so, I've sort of focusing my show on, I guess, like what kind of what we've just been talking about, things like the creative diet, or where to find ideas, the sort of the creative process of creating different types of experimental wedding films. And so I wanted my podcast to be a home for people who kind of like knew what they were doing in terms of like filming a wedding. They knew how to film a wedding, but they wanted to sort of develop their own unique, authentic style of wedding filmmaking as an experiment, and find different types of music and how to use that, different ways to edit, different ways to film. So that's basically where I'm taking the podcast now. And I'm really enjoying it. I've enjoyed the transformation of it.
Yeah. And I've been really excited to talk to you. Obviously, I almost jumped into it earlier about this because what gets me really excited is watching somebody's journey of taking steps and taking risks. And yeah, you mentioned, you did a little bit of emulating kind of what we were doing, or kind of finding your lane. But if you wouldn't have taken those steps, you couldn't have gotten to where you're at now. And I see like this success really starting to start for you with this. I know you just recently got sponsored by MusicBed, and I see a lot of like your Instagram's growing. I'm checking it. It's like, wow, they've hit 3,000. They hit, it's like, and it's really fun for me to watch somebody put in the work and to take risks, and to, maybe risk, looking like you don't know what you're doing to somebody, or looking like and it's like, all I see is just this incredible journey of you taking these steps and saying, oh, that's called Show Love. I'm going to do it like once a month, maybe. I'm going to try to find my friends. And then it was like, you started really getting more focused on, oh, this is what I want to be doing. I couldn't have got there though, unless I tried that out. And that's similar to our wedding films, similar to anything in life, really. If you're not willing to start and fail fast, and to learn and to grow and to fail fast again. And as long as you're not failing and then just sitting there in your failure, and that's what I would recommend to people out there with their wedding films. It's like, there's certain people I look at and I'm just like so inspired by their wedding films. And it's like, oh, I love how A Little Long Distance, includes their home footage or whatever. And it's like, I want to try that. I want to mess with that. And the more that I've done it, the more it's just like, oh, I'm going to get like a VCR and I'm going to digitize. Like, I enjoy this. This is so much fun for me to look through these things. And to some people, they'd be like, that would be the worst. But long story short, you've taken this podcast idea and then you repurposed it, you rethought of it, but you had to take some steps to get there. And so you've rebranded it. You've done different things. It's called Make Better Wedding Films now. Tell us a little bit about how often it is, what's your, what does all that look like? Just in case people, we want to introduce our audience to your podcast, because I think if they're listening to us, they need to be listening to you.
Yeah, man. So we're currently producing once a fortnight, and it's the podcast is hosted by myself, as well as Bottle Brush Films out of Australia. I sort of partnered with them a few months ago, which is awesome. Those guys are absolutely kick-ass. And yeah, we interview people from all over the world. We've had people from India, from Spain, from the US, from New Zealand, Australia, all over. And yeah, we've got in terms of our social platforms, our heaviest platform is Instagram. And so again, that was me looking at you guys, and there's a reason I haven't set up a Facebook group or anything like that yet, because it's like, you guys are doing that. You guys have got your Facebook group and stuff. And sort of I decided to jump in on Instagram. We're doing a bunch of extra kind of educational content on there. We do sort of weekly carousels. We do weekly music picks. We help you find music. We do all sorts of things over on Instagram. So yeah, that's probably the first place to check us out, and then obviously the podcast from there.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like how you're saying how you've, what you've talked about with us here about how you saw what we were doing and you kind of took it and then kind of made it your own and kind of said you're doing this well, but I found my lane over here. Like that's going back to being inspired with your films and stuff. It's kind of the same thing. Is you're watching other people's work, you're being inspired by it, and you're trying to figure out, well, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, and then you kind of find your lane, through that stuff. So that's really cool. Whenever it comes to your Make Better Wedding Films podcast, do you have any? John said that you were sponsored. Do you have any products or anything like that you want to share with our audience?
Yes, thank you again, Nick, for the wonderful segue. So basically I've just released first digital product, which I'm really excited about. So it is a LUT pack. It's a pack of 4 unique LUTs that I've been spending a lot of time on, and so I'm sure you guys have a link or something below for that. If your listeners want to check it out, I've got a 20% off promo code, which is HTFW, How to Film Weddings 20. Yeah, HTFW 20. I'll get you 20% off. So feel free to check it out. I've been spending a lot of time on that. Been working with a photographer who's known really well for his photo presets, and we've been doing some zooms and figuring out how to take his sort of expertise and sort of Lightroom color manipulation and sort of translate that over into LUTs. So there's been a lot of work that's gone behind it. I'm really excited about them.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool to see, and I wanted to say this too before we signed off, especially one thing that I've noticed about what you're doing is that and it kind of talks to what we were saying earlier, but I think that it's just been you showing up and being consistent, and that has made it to where especially with your podcast, you've just showed up, you're consistent, you've taken ideas, you've made them your own, you keep getting better. Every time I check out the Instagram, it's oh, that's a great idea. And what it has done though, is it's some people would be why would you have somebody that does a similar podcast on your podcast? And it's well, it's the same reason why we would teach people how to film weddings. It's we think that we all get better when we're all getting better. And it's and you can ask Nick, but over the last month, it's we've really started to dive into, new things. We've been pushed creatively. It's oh, we could do something similar, but different to what Ben's doing over here. That's really cool that he's doing that. That gives us an idea that is similar but different of something that we want to do, and it's this creative push from both of us or other podcasters or whatever to help each other get better. And it's there's this community aspect of it where it's just hey, Ben, if you need anything, we want to help you. And so I'm really pumped that you've got these LUTs coming out. We'll definitely have links around the video or podcast wherever you're listening, and that promo code HTFW20. We appreciate that. Is there an expiration time limit on that?
No, I don't think so. No,
okay,
no.
Cool.
Just for your listeners, they can use it as long as they want.
Awesome. That's so cool. Nick, anything else you want to add before we sign off here? I want to give Ben obviously an opportunity to make sure people know where to find him. But
yeah, I think that I really appreciate you taking your time and sharing your thoughts, especially about kind of the creative process and stuff. So that was great. But yeah, before we sign off here, where can people, both find your work and also your podcast?
Yeah, man. So, in terms of my wedding film work, my brand is Side Project Films. So probably just on Instagram or something if you want to follow there. And then the podcast, Make Better Wedding Films. If you go to the Make Better Wedding Films podcast, both mine and Bottle Brush's Instagram are linked on there anyway. So you'll be able to find us there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, boys, so much for having me. It's been awesome just, I guess, knowing you guys for so long. You guys came on my podcast when it was called Show Love and stuff. And, we've sort of been talking in the background on social media for a long time now. And it's been really cool to come on the show. A real honor. So, yeah, thank you so much for your time. And, keep doing what you're doing, boys.
Ben, thank you so much for being on the podcast this week. We really appreciate you taking the time. Remember, head over to makebetterweddingfilms.com, HTFW20 for that 20% off that LUT. Again, we're going to push our new pricing template guides that we have, howtofilmweddings.com/store. As John said earlier, we're going to have them be $50 off this next week. So normally they're $199. This week they will be $149. So make sure you pick those up. They're incredible guides that will really help your business. John, as always, it has been great to hang out with you. We need to get off this podcast because I have a consultation with a bride here in just a few minutes, and I really hope she hooks me. All right. Thank you, guys. We will see you next time.
See ya.
Are you looking for a better way to deliver your wedding films to your couples? Look no further. Our friends over at WedFlow provide the most flexible video delivery solution on the market. WedFlow is pay per project with no large upfront cost or commitment, and you can cancel anytime. Not only that, WedFlow offers a premium viewing experience for your couples, accessible on mobile, tablet, desktop, as well as their very own suite of TV apps. Each project comes with 10 years hosting and an experience for your clients that will blow them away. Stop delivering your films the old-fashioned way and give your couples something to rave about. Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/WedFlow to check out WedFlow today.